Okay, hi and welcome to our next session, our next talk on the section of linguistic anthropology that we are calling semiotics and semiology and signification and all of that. This is part B of our first subject that we are referring to, that we are discussing. And you know, in the first part A, in the first talk, the first part of our first talk, subject, we quickly introduced the very, very basics of what a sign is, and you know, we started to get a feel of the sign from a slightly different perspective. You know, we're not taking the conventional jump straight into the famous, very popular, very notable semioticians of the past 150 years, dare I say 2 to 3 millennia. We're gradually working from the periphery, which is what I like to do. Okay, start at the periphery, then we get a good get a good affective conceptualization of what the sign is, and then we gradually build onto that, and we start with the basics, but we sooner or later get to the quite advanced, if not new aspects of the field, and in this case, the semiotics, semiology, and signification. And you know, there is a difference between semiotics and semiology and everything, but you know, not now. We're not going to begin to discuss that now. Okay, so today we're going to move on to part B and past what we did last time. And today I'm going to begin by introducing a man who we didn't really include in the pioneers because he wasn't really a pioneer, yet he was a very important person in the sign, in discussing and developing notions of the sign. And this man was John Locke. John Locke was a man who was English, he was from England, and he was born in 1632, yeah, and he died in 1704. So he lived a good 72 years. For back then, you know, it was quite a good lifespan, and 72 years wasn't a bad innings at all. You know, back in England in the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, if you lived that long, then, you know, you could get past all this the tooth problem issues that weren't that treatable back then, and you know, other diseases that they weren't treatable. So he lived a quite long life, and he was a good scholar, John Locke. He was an English philosopher and physician, so he was both a philosopher and a medical person. And a lot of his work was medicine, but the philosophy of medicine as well, and the philosophy of the body, the anatomy and everything. He was an Enlightenment thinker, a father of liberalism. He was influential in epistemology and political philosophy. Okay, so you know, he was out there. He was doing all stuff, doing lots of things, and he was a thinker. He was definitely a philosopher by many people's standards. Okay, so all right. So we'll quickly speak about his work, and then we'll jump on, because I'm not intending to speak about him very much. I'm just intending to really just introduce him and quickly speak about his essay on human understanding, which was back in 1690, and you know, move on from there to other stuff. Okay, so he divided science into three. He said that all that can fall within the compass of human understanding being either first, the nature of things, as they are in themselves, their relations and their manner of operation, or secondly, that which man himself ought to do as a rational and voluntary agent for the attainment of any end, especially happiness. Or thirdly, and here we get to the significant part of his statement. Thirdly, the ways and means whereby the knowledge of both the one and the other of these is attained and communicated, I think science may be divided properly into these three sorts. So he elaborates on the third category, and he names it semiotique. So this is, it's not really the first, but it is the first time that somebody associates the word semiotique, semiosis, semeion. And remember, semeion comes from the Greek, and nothing else comes from the Greek. Semeion, which means to indicate, an indication. It doesn't really mean sign, irrespective of what we've read a million times. It means indication. Indicate, mark, indicate. That's the exact translation of the word semeion. Indication. Okay. All right. So if I say to you, semiose this, somehow put an indication there. Put an indication to yourself, to somebody else, for later on or something. Indicate what you want to do with this later on. Okay. Or if I say, what's the semioma? Semioma, what's the indication there? How do you know that the fry pan is hot? What's the semioma? And you say, well, there was oil in there and oil was evaporating and there's lots of smoke and everything. So the semioma, the indication, the semioma is that it's hot, is that, there's lots of smoke coming out and it's, I can hear it shh. All right, if I drop a little oil in there, water in there, it goes shh. So the semioma is that the fry pan is hot. Or what's the semioma that your brother is angry? Well, he stormed into the room and kicked the door open and slammed it shut and said, I don't want to talk to you, and sent me out of the room and everything. Okay, the semioma, the indication. Okay, so going back to Locke, he elaborates on the third category, naming it a semiotique. Okay, and the doctrine of science. And he says, nor is there anything to be relied upon in physic, he uses the word physic, but an exact knowledge of medicinal physiology, semiotics, method of curing, and tried medicines. Okay, all right. So really, we're looking historically, of course, and locating the earliest mention and inclusion of the word semiotic. Okay, so I'm going to now start to introduce to you and describe not only what the sign is and how it works, but my own sort of take on this, which is a real fleshing out of everything. And I like to do that. Of course, I like to mention, I intend on mentioning the work that all these people are doing, but also the, to flesh out everything, to see what's going on. So you can see on your screens or on your devices, you can see at the top left, there's the word object. Now, I've got 3 boxes. 3 boxes, appearance 1, appearance 2, appearance 3. Okay, so what happens is, let's jump forward a little, then we can go back and flesh out, interrogate what we're learning. You've got 3 boxes, appearance 1, appearance 2, appearance 3. So what happens is, there's an object, and the object could be anything and everything, and it undergoes some sort of perception. It's experienced. It is experienced by somebody, something, and throughout its experience, following its experience, it develops a sort of appearance. Okay. Now, depending on the perception, it becomes transformed in some way. Okay. And this is, let's use a word that I don't like to use, but I use it anyway because, it's too conventional and everybody knows the word. And, to use another word, which I do, people would have to get to know it and everything. It wouldn't be conventional. And there goes the Saussurean idea in proving the Saussurean idea that language must be conventional and everything. Okay, so this transformation is psychological. Okay, now I'm going to substitute that word psychological with another one. Okay, let's call it somological, or let's call it cognitive. Okay, cognitive or somological. Let's stick with a cognitive. Okay, let's say that the object undergoes some sort of cognitive transformation. Now, you see the acronym there, IT, IT1, IT2, IT3. The acronym IT stands for interpretive transformation, okay? Interpretive transformation. So we interpret, and hence the object undergoes some sort of cognitive transformation, okay? Okay, so there's an IT1, interpretive transformation, and the object appears in one way. But then there's an IT2, another interpretive transformation, and it appears in another way. Okay, and then the same with IT3, and it appears in the third way. Now, you know, there are only 3 there, and of course, we know that this is just a model, and there's an infinite number of ways we can interpretively transform the object so that it appears in an infinite number of ways. And the way we see the object, the way it appears, is predicated on our perspective. Okay? Now, our perspective, hence, becomes very fluid because, you know, you step 1 step to the left and your perspective changes. You step 2 steps, 3 steps to the right, or 5 steps backwards, and your perspective changes and you see something else. Okay? So, because our perspective is so fluid or rheotic, then this object can be interpreted and transformed in an infinite number of ways, you know, depending on, and the factors here, the variables, include the person you are, you know, your history, your enculturation, the group you are in with at one time, the time of day, the place you're in. You know, you could be in a hot place and the sun's beating down and sun rays are beating down and you're sweating and you think, oh, I don't like this blanket. But then you could be in the North Pole and say, well, I'm so grateful for being given this blanket. At the next slide, you will see, once again, a blow-up of that previous diagram. You have the object and its appearance. Okay. And you have an IT, an interpretive transformation. So the interpretive transformation is what happens to the object cognitively. You know, I don't like that word psychology. It's a misnomer, and it was named wrongly from the outset of the field. However, it's here to stay, apparently. It's very conventional. Okay, so the object undergoes some sort of interpretive transformation and it appears in a certain way. It does something. It presents itself in a certain way. Okay. But the question is, relevant to whom or to what? To me, to you, to a lion running by and looking for food, to your favorite parakeet flying by, or you know, sitting on its perch or something. Okay, so the object, the item that has been temporarily at least objectified, undergoes some sort of predication or appearance change, appearance transformation, interpretive transformation. Okay, so the characteristics of the sign, some characteristics of the sign, include representation. It represents something. It is representative of something. So there is representation there. So we speak of representativeness. We speak of personalization. When you see something, when you perceive something, when you smell, taste, when you hear, when you sense something in a certain way, when you think of something in a certain way, it's personal. However, at the same time, there are conventional, socially conventional aspects connected to the object. So they also influence the ways in which we perceive the object. Okay. So, arbitrariness. Well, what is arbitrariness? We're going to speak a lot about arbitrariness, but basically the fact that the ways in which we perceive the object are not natural in any way. They can be anything. They can be anything. Okay, and that's a huge field of study, arbitrariness, and whether our perception, our interpretation of something, of someone, of an event, of a discourse or something, is actually natural or not. So we discuss that later on. There's a lot we're going to discuss, and in fact, OMILIA, OMILIA, our ongoing meetings in linguistic anthropology are exactly that. They're ongoing. Okay. And progressivity and developmentality. Progressivity and developmentality. Suggesting that our interpretive transformation is progressive and developmental and ongoing. Okay.